Is chaos in Hong Kong amid protests and a general strike. More than 200 flights have now been canceled, and much of the city was brought to a standstill. Beijing-backed leader Carrie Lam is warning the protests are putting the financial center on a path of no return.
The recent protests and marches have seen escalated violence, and these worrying acts have gone beyond the Fugitive Offenders Bill, particularly when I have already announced some time ago that the bill is dead. Such extensive disruptions in the name of certain demands or uncooperative movement have seriously undermined Hong Kong's law and order and are pushing our city, the city we all love and many of us helped to build, to the verge of a very dangerous situation.
Joining us right now to talk about this and the devaluation of the yuan and maybe a connection between the two, Michelle Caruso Cabrera is here, CNBC contributor. Good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
What is your view? You think these are not separate events?
Oh, not at all. So, yes, the Chinese yuan is weakening because of President Trump, because of the trade war, because the Chinese government is allowing it to weaken. However, do not discount the impact that the Hong Kong protests would be having on the Chinese currency as well, primarily capital flight out of China for people who are worried about the stability and how this thing is going to come to an end. Because do not underestimate how extraordinary what is happening in Hong Kong is. A general strike is very common in France. It's very common in Greece. It is unheard of in Hong Kong. To face off against the authorities like this is an astounding thing, and you have to ask, how is it going to end?
Do you think that there's sort of a line in the sand that they've gone past the point of no return at this point?
In Hong Kong or the currency?
No,
I don't
in
know.
Hong Kong.
I don't know about Hong Kong. I don't know where this ends, but I think that's why you would have currency flight or capital flight as well, because people worry about how this comes to an end. Do you, God forbid, have the PLA come out, the People's Liberation Army, and do something to these people? I mean, that's the worst case. That would be the ultimate escalation. Nobody's saying that right now, but you have to worry.
And then flip it around, though, and talk about the currency devaluation, because one of the things we were talking about with Steve is it's one thing to let the currency fall. It's another to push the currency.
Right.
And what does it matter? I mean, it may have the same effect, by the way.
Yeah, Steve and I had the same conversation in the makeup room. I thought his point was a good one, that, you know, currency wars are historically about intervening, and what China has chosen to do here is to not intervene. However, I think ultimately, it's a difference without a distinction, right? They're letting it fall. In part, and they put it in print, right, in their press release, that this is in part because of President Trump. But the thing is, remember, it also trades offshore. And before the onshore move, which is controlled by the government, happened, the offshore move was very, very strong. So that divergence can't last for long without them facing an enormous amount of pressure.
Well, if the tactical calculation of this new round of tariffs is to further squeeze the Chinese economy, I mean, obviously you're weakening the currency,
Exactly.
by extension.
No, but naturally, that makes a lot of sense, yes. By the way, weakening the currency also hurts Hong Kong, right? Because they've got this dollar peg. So it has this additional effect to say, look at what you're doing to the economy here, if indeed that's the message that they're trying to send to Hong Kong. But it's all very related.
To the degree you want to read political tea leaves here in the United States, though, part of what's happening in China is they are trying to read the political tea leaves here and figure out, is President Trump going to be President Trump at the end of 2020? Do they have more leverage now? Do they have more leverage after an election, even if he was in place? How do you see all of that?
So I have long thought that there wasn't going to be a deal until after the election in the United States, that the way the incentive structure was set up for the president, that having a trade war with China works pretty well for him, as long as the economy and the stock market cooperate.
Okay, but
let's see what happens with the stock market.
But that's a real issue, because if you look at these red arrows today, if this continues for a week or two, how does that change?
A move like this today, I don't think it's much. It's how long does it go on for? I've also long suspected that the reason he was pressuring the Fed so much is that he wanted to weaken the currency, so he had more ammunition against Beijing, right? That gave him more strength. The other thing I would add this morning is I don't think the move in Bitcoin is disconnected as well. Right? I mean, there are currency controls in China. Supposedly, you can't bring out more than $50,000 a year. And yet, hundreds of thousands of parents manage to pay $100,000 a year for Harvard, NYU, apartments, all of Vancouver, et cetera, right? So money gets out.
That might have been true, but by the way, is not happening right now.
I think
it's
still
very limited what you're seeing right now in terms of investment in the U.S. from China. Not even investment, forget it, but just even some of these issues are.
Yes, student numbers are down, et cetera. Yes, real estate is down. My point is that even though there have been years worth of capital controls supposedly in place, everybody managed to evade them and get around them. Is it harder now? I don't doubt that, but there's going to be pressure to get money out for sure.
Michelle Caruso Cabrera, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Always an honor to be on.
We only get to see you, though, like on a terrible day, typically.
That's always been historically the case, even when I was here full time.
Not terrible yet, I wouldn't say.
Right.
So still early.
One other thing, by the way, that happened over the weekend. No deal Brexit.
Exactly.
October 31. That's another. It's a deglobalization. Oh, my gosh. That's a big deal.